Happy Tuesday, everybody. It's Jim. It's Amadeus. And, it's a nice, warm Tuesday afternoon. And Amadeus, nothing gets you in the mood for a nice, warm afternoon than talking about football in the NFL for the fall. So some of these teams are starting their mini camps, where they got the rookies in camp, and they're putting the pads on and seeing how things are going. I know you've got an opportunity to look at some of these um, preseason looks at win totals. When you start your season out as a handicapper, do you go through that as a win? Are the preseason win totals important to you, or is that just something you kind of blow off and say, hey, look, I want to wait until camp starts and see who's there before I start getting into the silliness?
Yeah, personally, I always like to see what happens. Really,
Hmm.
in any sport, even not just
Hmm.
NFL. Any sport, it's always tough the first game or the first week or so, just
Hmm.
because ju- as we've seen many times, just because a team is supposed to be good on paper, it
Hmm.
doesn't always pan out that way, right? And then
Yeah.
absolutely, you see these things like we get the Chicago Bears win total. We've talked many times, hovering right around 9, and you see things like that, and
Hmm.
then you start to scratch your head and wonder. But yeah, personally for me, I like to see what happens. I want to see. We don't even know really the full rosters yet, so
Sure.
obviously, it helps to wait, but. It depends too, right? Like the
Sure.
Bears are one of those examples where I think there's value on the under now. I don't need to
Hmm.
see who's making this roster. I'm making the decision based off the fact that
Right.
you have a rookie quarterback with, as you said, not a lot of talent on the offense. Like the
Hmm.
talent's there, but there's not really that safety net guy that you
Hmm.
touched on a few shows ago. And that I think is going to be an issue for them. And even if they have a good season, are they going to win 10 games? They would have to win 10 games for you to win your bet at over 9. So that's one of those things where I look at it like, I don't need to see the roster. I'm making that decision based off um, Caleb Williams being in his first year, and he's
Hmm.
going to struggle. He's not just going to come out and win 10 games. So I find value on that. But like I said, those are usually exceptions. I prefer to see, what we're dealing with. Hell, someone might even get traded, obviously with San
Hmm.
Francisco, there's the Brandon Ayuk dispute
Hmm.
about the contract. They're trying to work something out, but who knows? Maybe he's not even a 49er come week 1. So
Right.
those are always things you want to keep an eye on as well.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, 10 wins in that division could win the division.
Yeah, absolutely. 10 wins could win the division. So and it's crazy because I know you'd mentioned it before the show. Some of these divisions have like 3, 4 teams where the win total is like 8.5 or 9.5,
Right.
and I don't know, just the math doesn't quite add up in my head here. There's not a ton of teams where there's like 6.5 or
Right.
4.5 win totals. There's really even like the Vikings, who you would think are going to struggle with JJ McCarthy, another first
Right.
year quarterback. They got a 7.5 win total. Like that's almost 500 season we're
Right.
asking for from the Vikings. That's insane.
Well, that's absolutely crazy. All right, I'll tell you what. You've got the totals there in front of you. Let's start with the NFC, and let's go west because your Arizona Cardinals are at the top of the list here.
Yeah, so my Cardinals, their win total this year is 6.5. It is
Hmm.
juiced. It's about minus 160 to the over. So I'm sure you can find a 7 out there on the total if you shop
Hmm.
around, right? But yeah, I'm not going to comment too much on this one just because obviously it's my team, and you
Yeah.
know me, I'm pessimistic with all my teams. They're all
Hmm.
trash and they're all not going to do anything. But it's nice to see, Vegas finally agrees, because the last few years they've been giving this team way too much respect as if they're going to be a 500 team, and they're just awful. But you know what? 6.5 might be too low. I don't know. 7 might be the right number. They might finish with
Hmm.
exactly maybe a 7-9 season. It's really tough for me to say just because I'm too close to this team as it
Hmm.
is. So that's why I never really give out Cardinal games when I don't bet on them, and I don't
Hmm.
really give them out either. But yeah, they're a team where 7 might be the right number for them. I think just because we don't know what they're going to be, right? They drafted another wide receiver. We'll see what happens. Kyler Murray has supposedly matured. I have
Right.
to see it.
Well, they're in a tough division, and that makes it difficult. I can see 7. I could see even 8, potentially 8, if everybody's healthy and plays to the abilities that they have. But yeah, the Cardinals are a bit of a wild card. You just don't know. And we think the 49ers are going to come back and be strong. The Rams, there's every reason to believe that the Rams should have a decent team. We'll have to see what the Seahawks do. They're in a quarterback situation up there. But Arizona, I mean, again, you're in a division where you have to look at the division as much as you have to look at, how many wins they're going to get. Because you play everybody in the division, and then, yeah, you get to play, if you're the Cardinals, you get to play a softer schedule from a standpoint of lower teams on the totem pole, but that doesn't mean that they're bad teams. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But yeah, I'm with you. 7, maybe 8. 6.5, I think, is a little low for the Cardinals this year.
Yeah, and you made a great point with the division they're in, right? You got a team that went to the Super Bowl last year in the division. The Rams found a bit of a resurgence there after having their down year. They kind of came back. Puka Nacua had a bit of a breakout. And then, even Seattle, like maybe they catch a break with Seattle because there's the new coach. And obviously, not coming off a great season there with Geno. But then again, you could also say that the Seahawks are due for a bounce back season. So it's definitely one of those things where they probably finish 3rd or 4th behind the Rams and the 49ers for sure.
Yeah. All right. Let's next up on the hit parade would be the NFC South. And everywhere I look, a lot of people are buying in on the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, so there's some interesting totals in this one. The Falcons are at 9.5, and it's not hard for me to believe, just because the division's not that strong. Obviously, we saw it last year. I called the Bucks plus 700 to win that division, so that should tell you the kind of division.
There you go.
Last team in the odds won it last year. So it's one of those, look, I love Tampa. I love Baker and the boys, but they lost their offensive coordinator. Again, he's dealing with a little bit of, again, the situation he's had his whole career. So who knows with Tampa Bay? I think they'll be good again. But even with them being good, the Falcons are going to win games. They had a decent team last year. They were just missing a quarterback, and they went and got a quarterback, and now they have arguably 2 quarterbacks that you could put in there. So we'll see, right? Again, it's another situation, though, where Kirk has to learn the system, obviously. So it's one of those things where maybe a slow start to the season puts them under the win total. It's an interesting one. You have the Carolina Panthers, who are obviously the punching bag of that division. They're at 4.5, and honestly, I might still take the under 4.5 because this was a game that won this is a team that won 2 games last year, and we both agree that even if Bryce improves, he's not going to take that big step until year 3, especially when he looked like a deer in headlights last year. And he still doesn't have a team around him. So how many games are they going to win?
Well, I mean, they took the Bucks OC as their new head coach. So you're going to I would think that that's going to help Bryce. But the point that you just made is the point that's most important. He still doesn't have any tools around him. Bryce got sacked a ton of times last year. They didn't, Carolina didn't go out and really do much to bolster that front line. So, there's no reason to believe that all of a sudden Carolina is going to be spectacular. The wild card here for me, I mean, you and I both like the Buccaneers, but I think the wild card for me here is what's going to happen with the Saints. Defensively, the Saints are a good football team. Offensively, the Saints are a mediocre football team. And if they got any kind of offense, um, that would be this team. This is going to be a division where, again, for the fourth time, I guess, in a row, Buccaneers won three of them. Where the team's going to be, where the winning team in the division is probably going to be maybe one or two games north of 500. It's going to be that kind of, and they're all going to be in it until the last week or so. Um, so it's going to be that. I mean, they each team has improved a little bit. Now, one of the good things, if you're a Buccaneers fan, is they brought everybody back. I don't think anybody thought that was going to happen. So they got that. They also had a good draft. So that's good for them. But, Atlanta, as you say, Atlanta improved. And we all know Raheem Morris is a good defensive guy. He's their new head coach. And Raheem is going to, the Atlanta defense wasn't bad. And he's just going to make it better. Offensively, as you say, Kirk Cousins should make that team, more competitive. But it all boils down to an offense that last year underperformed. They've got the players to perform. It's now, will they perform? And I think we're going to have to see how that works out. The Buccaneers went out, and one of the reasons that Baker's back is he really liked the assistant OC and quarterback coach at with the Rams, Liam, and they brought him in, Liam Cohen, and he's now their OC, and I think that Liam and Baker work well together. They've got another running back and a kid out of Oregon who's a good player, and that's another thing. Plus, they got a couple of good offensive linemen. So again, I don't think that this division is going to be. I think it's going to be competitive, but I don't see anybody in this division pulling away. Sans Carolina, I should say. You can see Tampa Bay, the Saints, and Atlanta basically duking it out to get to the playoffs. And this is not going to be a two teams from this division aren't going to make the playoffs. But it's going to be another NFC South battle between those three teams.
Yeah, I agree. And we saw it last year. There was pretty much a three-horse race. They all finished right around that 500 mark. And again, there's the win totals in this thing. Like I said, Atlanta at 9.5. I could see Atlanta winning the division at 9-8. So I don't love that total. That's one I'd probably stay off. But I don't mind, the under 4.5 in the Carolina Panthers total, just because I don't think, even if they improve, are they going to win 5 games this year? Like from 2 games to 5 games is a big jump in the NFL with a team like that specifically. Not, as we mentioned, no tools around him on the offense. And then both the Bucks and the Saints are at 7.5. And of those two teams, I would feel more comfortable taking the over 7.5 with the Bucks, just because they won the division last year. And we saw them go above 500 last year versus the Saints. Like, could they hit that over 7.5? They could, but as you said, they're going to rely a ton on their defense this year to keep them in games. And then the rest is going to be up to, what Derek Carr do we get on a given night.
Right.
Or Jameis Winston even.
I don't know. I just, the funny thing to me, and as we look at this, I would say Atlanta and Tampa Bay are pretty close to equal, but they just continue to undervalue Baker Mayfield. I just, we talked about it on the quarterbacks when we listed out the quarterbacks. This kid just doesn't get, he's the Rodney Dangerfield, the quarterbacks. It's like absolutely no respect. He had a hell of a year, given all, at one. I just don't see that. I just don't see he's being respected at all by by either the bookmakers in Vegas or, for that matter, the people around the NFL.
Yeah, like I always say, he gets a ton of hate, and I just don't see it because I don't think we've really seen him at his full capabilities. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he didn't get a fair shot in Cleveland, and don't tell me, oh, he was there for 3 years. He took Cleveland to their first playoff game in
Right.
years. All right, nobody talks about that, and
Mm-hmm.
they threw him away like a used tissue. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
yet all I got to hear about is how, he was the problem in the locker room. I don't know if I buy that. I really don't. He's someone who went in. He wanted to win. He turned an organization that was barely winning one game a season to the playoffs. And then, as soon as we got a little bit of talent attracted to the team, we just threw him away like he was nothing to bring in some, I don't know, massage parlor man over here, pay him the most money in the NFL. Like, what the hell are we doing in Cleveland?
Well, let me ask you this. How often has Cleveland been in the playoffs since Baker left?
Like, once, and that was because of Joe Flacco last year.
It took Joe Flacco to get them there. And so, yeah, I mean, the idea, blaming him, whenever you go to the Rams, when he got traded to the Rams for a brief period of time, I mean, that wasn't like he spent the entire season there. The first thing people said about Baker Mayfield was he outworked everybody on the team when he got there to learn the system. He gets to Tampa Bay. First thing you hear from the players, he's the first guy in the locker room every week. First guy out. I mean, last guy out. They love him there. The fans love him there. He signed a deal to stay there for a while, and I honestly think that it's just been a matter of people have not. He feels now with Jason Light that somebody believes enough in him to give him a chance to play. And I think that that's gonna, when you've got that, you can calm down a bit. You don't have to worry about, look over your shoulders or another guy waiting, on is there some guy waiting in the wings to take my place? That's not the case. This is Baker Mayfield's football team to do with as he will. And I think, and the team rallies around. As a matter of fact, Chris Godwin came back specifically because of it.
Yeah, look, him and Mike Evans could have left in the offseason, but
sure.
They know what they have there, and nobody knows better than the guys that are in the locker room every day.
Right. And those two guys it's not like those two guys couldn't have gotten another place to play.
Oh, absolutely. Mike Evans, he never really gets talked about as one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. There's always, other names that come up, but Mike Evans, every single year for like the last 7 years, he's been one of the number one fantasy wide receivers. I know fantasy football, who cares? But look, fantasy football, it tells you a lot about the stats of players. When they're collecting points, that's based off yards and catches they've made. So Mike Evans, every year he's got fantasy production. He's one of the best wide receivers. And why? Because he's the number one guy. He's a solid wide receiver. He had that streak where, 1,000 yards every season. So he's a guy that doesn't get talked about enough. And maybe, that's why he stayed there, because he looks at it like, he's like the Baker Mayfield of wide receivers. He's one of the best in the league, and he doesn't really get talked about as some of these other guys that we talk about, like Stephon Diggs and guys like that.
Well, let's go now to the NFC East. What a mess that's going to be with Dallas and Philadelphia, Washington, and of course the New York Football Giants.
All right, so we can start with America's team, the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, the Green Bay Packers. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, the Green Bay Packers. The Dallas Cowboys, 10.5 is the win total. What? And it's a tough one because, I think this is a tough total just because Dallas is a team every year they get crapped on. And look, it's fair. they haven't been, back to the Super Bowl in how many years. They don't perform well in the playoffs. But the fact of the matter is, people love to crap on them during the season. They're a good regular season team. They win games in the regular season. They win double-digit games normally, and they're usually a threat in that division. Mm-hmm. My problem with them this year is, I loved this team last year.
Right, you did.
But also a big reason why I love this team is not there anymore.
Right.
And that, I think, is going to be problem. Just like, look, I love the players on this defense. They still have the great defense, with Michael Parsons and that kid that was, getting a pick six every game. I forget what his name. I think what was it, Branch or something like that.
Yeah.
But they have a ton of talent. But Dan Quinn is a great defensive mind, and he was a reason. Don't get me wrong, he was a reason that they lost some of those games just because the style that their defense played. They can't really, come back. They're not built to come back from behind. But at the same time, their defense won them a lot of games. And so I'm just curious to see what kind of Cowboys team we're going to get, because this was also a team, we're talking about trading Dak Prescott in the offseason, and nobody would even want to take him if he gets traded. So if this is your starting quarterback at the beginning of the season, and now we've brought in the Zeke reunion too,
right?
What the hell are we doing in Dallas? I genuinely don't know. And also, with the coaching stuff, like all that Bill Belichick nonsense, how they were going to, hire him. And what about, Mike McCarthy? Like, it's just, it's a mess in Dallas right now. Right. 11 games is a lot. I don't know if I would want to take their over this year.
By the way, Jason, we 100% were with you, man. Jason says he's happy for much maligned, so. Jason, we're on your side, my friend. I would say, without question, every year Dallas, Dallas comes out, plays well, but there's got to be, at this point in time, Dak's been there for a long time. That offense. They brought Zeke back. I got nothing. Defense is where they're going to, keep the games tight. And could they win the division? At this time, Philadelphia did well in the draft. I think I would give Philadelphia a slight edge this time over Dallas in the division. At this point, but Dallas is just, this time to me they're a bit of a mystery. I just don't know what to do with them yet. I don't think. I think Dak's not. I think Dak's going to regress. I do. He didn't have he had a good season last year, but he's starting to get to that point where he's almost throwing as many interceptions as he's throwing touchdown passes, and we'll see. I mean, I don't think this. This is like a Tony Romo thing, right? Year in, year out, they win just enough to keep the coach's job, but not enough to get them anywhere. And it's like rinse and repeat with Dak. Okay, it's the same thing. It's Tony Romo 2.0, and that's great for the season. But if you're not going to do it, it's going to be tough. And we got Jason wearing in. He's just always good enough to raise expectations and disappoint their fans. I'm so here for it. Jason, once again, my friend, you are 100% on point.
And this is what I was talking about with them. Like, they always get crapped on so hard. And personally, like, I hate it. Like, don't get me wrong. They deserve to get crapped on for their performance in the playoffs, because it's the same every year, the disappointment that Jason's talking about there. But I hate when people do it during the regular season, just because they win 10 games every season.
You can pencil it in.
Yeah, like they're a good regular season team. That's why I always laugh. Like in week 4, people are like, "Oh no, the Cowboys are going to be bad this year. They never do anything." Okay, yeah, they never do anything in the playoffs. It doesn't mean they're not going to win their week 4 game. That's just what they do. So I'm with you though. They're a question mark without Dan Quinn. They still have the pieces on defense, but I don't know what that defense is going to look like. Is the thing, right? We still got to have the right guy in there to use those pieces correctly. And And as you said, Dak, like who knows with him? Maybe the answer for this team is finally let's throw Trey Lance out on the field because
Mhm.
hell, there was that season. What was it, like 2-3 years ago where Cooper Rush made
Yeah.
Dak Prescott look like a bag of chips. So
Yeah.
why are we keeping this guy as the starter just because? I'm Jerry Jones and I like him. Like let's get Trey
Well,
Lance
that's
out.
one of them. That's one of the reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, let's try. Look, and I'm not a Trey Lance guy. I was the first one who said the 49ers should have traded him, but like
Mhm.
something's got to change in Dallas, and maybe he's it. Who knows, right? Give him a
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah. Definitely. Washington and New York, Philadelphia. Philadelphia had a good draft. They did. They got an A+ draft. They got what they needed, which was corners, which they were desperately in need of. So on the back end of that defense, they got it. They made um, they made a trade, which got them Kenny Pickett, which is a bit of a surprise. Kenny, obviously backing up Jalen Hurts. I think this team's gonna. If this team's gonna win the division, which I think they have the chance to do it, I hate to say it for Jalen, but it's Jalen. It's gonna, how far can he do it? Because last season, the problems they had when they started that terrible, run where things went south for them toward the end of the season. It's the old joke about the quarterback gets all the glory and all the blame. Well, in this particular case, he got all the glory for good reason, and he's going to get all the blame for good reason. So I don't know. I'm not so sure. Philly, we got Jason Wayne in here. Philly did great draft, and then they added a heck of a running back too. You're right, Jason. They did. I like Philadelphia, but I would not be willing to sit here today and put money on them to win that division. Although I do think that they can win that division.
Yeah, so they're another one. The total's 10.5 for the season, like the Cowboys, and they're both
Okay.
plus 100 to the over.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows? Maybe neither team, maybe the division winner doesn't hit 10 games this year, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe just 10 games. But I agree with you. I would be more inclined of the two to take the over with the Eagles, just
Mm-hmm.
because. Yeah, last year was their bad season. They had that great season that they went to the
Mm-hmm.
Super Bowl. They started off great last year. But then
Right.
you started to see it. And yeah, it's totally on Jalen Hurts. He was becoming a poison in the locker room by
Mm-hmm.
the end of the season. Something about that mindset. And again, it's funny because you can chalk it up to that mentality of, he's played his whole, college career and NFL career with a chip on his shoulder, always had
Mm-hmm.
something to prove. Finally got paid last year, didn't have anything to prove, and he became absolutely toxic in the locker room. So it's totally on him. He can fix his mental space. They had the good season 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm with you. I think they have the quality on that team. They could easily win this division, and I would rather take them than the Cowboys at the over, just because the Eagles are going to be in line to have a bounce back year, especially the way they ended it with the Bucks last season.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm with you. I think the Eagles should be the team to beat here. But again, it's totally on Hurts, and he can do it. He needs that, he needs that everybody against me mentality back, because that's when he
Right.
really was playing at his best.
I like the move to bring Kenny Pickett in because Kenny is a good game manager, and he's the kind of guy who he's totally opposite of Jalen Hurts. Okay, from a standpoint of he's a pocket passer. He'll run if he's chased, but not there's not a inclination to run the ball, which Jalen does. And I honestly would like to see Jalen um, not run as much, to be honest, if and to become more. That was one of the problems that Lamar Jackson had when he was first in the league was he ran, and that was option two. Option one, if it wasn't there, was okay. I don't have it. I'll run. Um, Instead of going through progressions. He learned that. He learned to get better at it, and certainly that's why he gets P the the a couple of so Lamar learned it. I think Jalen can learn it too. And I think you're right about the winning when you're as young and as talented as Jalen does and is, and you're disrespected, or at least you think you are, is great motivation. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But it's going to be an interesting year for the Eagles, as they call them in Philadelphia, and how things play out at Lincoln Financial Field this year is going to be pretty entertaining. Now, that leaves us with the New York Football Giants in the blue jerseys and the new, I say new ownership in Washington, where the Commanders have Jalen Daniels and new head coach, new offensive coordinator, and a new mindset about going back to becoming the kind of Redskins, Commanders team, I'm sorry, the kind of Commanders team that they used to be back in the glory days when Joseph Jackson Gibbs was their head football coach.
Yeah, with these two teams, I personally like the under on the wins total, but I'll let you talk about your Commanders since they're right down the street from you.
Yeah.
I know there's so much hype building up, especially with those stadium renovations they've been doing. I bet.
Oh yeah.
Oh man. But so you tell me, the total for both these teams is 6.5. You see a 7-9 season for the Commanders this year?
I don't see a 7-9 season for either of those teams.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like the under for both.
I mean, I'm being honest here. It's gonna be a transition. You got a new coach, you got a new quarterback, you got there's gonna be a lot of "hello, my name is" tags all over the place there. So yeah, I don't see it. I just don't. And there's no way in hell you're gonna sell me that the Giants are gonna win 7 football games. I mean,
unless they're throwing Tommy Cutlets out, then absolutely not. They're not winning 7 games.
No. And I say that with a friend of mine 4 floors above me who could probably throw me through the window. Not probably. That's a doubt.
Hey,
doubt.
He thinks he's getting tons of playing time this season. So
that's true.
That should tell you what he thinks about the team. He's excited. And I love that mentality from a defender. You know what? Because, there's the half glass full and the half glass. And he could have looked at it like, we're going to suck and be under 500. But no, he chose to look at it like, man, they're going to learn my name. I'm going to be sacking guys left and right. And, man, I'm going to be out there for 45 minutes of the 60. I love it.
I know that back in the day when the Ravens had the fantastic defense they had, Ray Lewis, who never was at a lack of ability to talk. Ray used to say when they had some offensive challenges, which they did during Ray's time there. He would say, "That's all right. We'll score a couple of points. We have a couple of points for you. Don't worry about it. Just get it. Just let us on the field. We'll take care of it." And more often than not, they either scored for them or put them in such a position with get a fumble recovery or something where the fields were much shorter for them. But I think you're right. I think neither of those two teams are going to be under the I'm sorry, over, was it 6.5? You said?
Yeah, 6.5 for both.
Yeah, no, that's not gonna happen.
Even maybe 6 wins, but that still stays under, right? Like you're asking the Giants and the Commanders to go 7-9, basic, or sorry, 7-10, sorry, and or 8-9, like.
Well, you've got. I mean, I just don't. No, I just don't. I mean, I'll tell you. Okay, so basically, they split the games against each other. So there's 1 win for each of them. They both play the lower rung of the schedule from a standpoint of the other teams, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting an easy slog through it. So no, I just as much as I'd like to see the Commanders do well, I think honestly, I think if they won 6 or 7 games, that'd be a good start for Dan Quinn and what he's got to do in Washington. So
Well, to be
for
fair to
me,
the
it'd be good.
Commanders, they have an excuse. I like the under on both teams, but for different reasons. With the
Hmm.
Commanders, it's as you said, you got the rookie quarterback, everybody with the "hello, my name is" still
Mm.
sticker still on, right? They have an excuse. They're gonna have a bad season. I would be shocked if they had a good season with all the moves and changes they've made. The Giants have no excuse. They're just an absolute disaster and a mess. And that's my reason I think they stay under 6.5. You're going to
Right.
trust Daniel Jones to get 7 games? And what? Saquon Barkley's gone now, too? Like, where the hell's the offense coming from on this
Well,
team?
let's go back here to Jason's comment, right? Said they got a heck of a running back too. Yeah, Saquon Barkley is a heck of a running back.
This is what I mean, though. Like, where's the offense coming from? He was the offense last year. Even when Daniel Jones was playing, he was the running back and the wide receiver. So where the hell's the ball going to?
It's not going well. Maybe it will go to Saquon Barkley, but not coming from anybody in a
And
Giants blue Allen uniform.
yeah, and even the
Uh,
pieces you had, like you got rid of Ivan Tony because it's not Ivan Tony, that's the Premier League player. What Kadarius Tony? It's
right,
spelled the same way with the
right. It
E. That's
is
why it confuses me.
right,
But yeah, no, Kadarius, he traded him away because he couldn't catch the ball, and it turned it out to be a liability on the Chiefs. So
right.
maybe not a bad move. But this is what I mean. Like, look at the guys. You traded Evan Ingram away because he
Mhm.
couldn't catch the ball. Who the hell is doing the scouting for this organization when they draft?
Evidently, not enough scouting are they doing. So there you go. We got through. Oh wait, we didn't get the North? I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, we've touched on the Bears quite a bit, so we can
Yeah,
leave
let's
them
forget
out.
them. Yeah, we'll leave them out. Let's start off with Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit, 10.5. They're
Mm.
coming off a great season, and
Oh,
it's hard for me to think they're going to have a bad season just because they've improved every year Campbell's been there, and this team seems to be on the right trajectory, trending upwards. So I expect them to improve after the season they had. Really, it's the defense, right? They had that
right.
big hole in the middle of the field on defense, really, and if they can fix that up, then the Lions could be a very dangerous team this year.
All right. You and I love to watch the Lions. It's the coach of the Lions that drives us crazy. I gotta think, in all fairness, that in my mind, in my mind, he cost them at least one, if not 2 games last year.
Yep.
Fair enough, Dan Campbell. I don't know. I hope that I hope that he. I don't want to see him do the riverboat Ron Rivera routine. Um, he's got a good football team. Don't don't screw it up. Don't lose that. But what did you say, 10.5 or 11.5? What was it?
Yeah, 10.5 for
Yeah,
them.
I
So
could see 11 wins out of Detroit. I could see 12 wins out of Detroit.
yeah, I think I would be more inclined to take the over. It's at plus 100, the over 10.5. So for sure on that. And yeah, see, that's the thing with Dan Campbell is, look, we'll cut him some slack because he
Mm-hmm.
is, a new head coach. He's a
Sure.
younger guy, and he's only in this will be his fourth season, I think, now
Fourth
with the Lions,
season, yeah.
or
Mm-hmm.
third, something.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's one of those things where there's a learning curve for him
Sure.
there as well too. He's like
Mm-hmm.
a rookie basically, right? He came into the team all amped up and whatever, and he's grown with the team these last few years. So hopefully, yeah, he needs to learn from those mistakes last year because there's a fine line between being aggressive and just being flat out stupid. And that's
Right.
exactly what he was, right? You
Right.
want to go for the two. Fine, I understand. Get the win and get out of there. But then, get backed up 5 yards, and at some
Right.
point, right, and then you got to redo on that, and you still went for it. Like at some point, we got to just cut the losses and say,
Right.
damn field goal.
Well, I think you're good. I think your point is well taken, Dan. But here's the thing that's important and more important at the end of the day. His players love him. And so that's what you got to, that we'll take that. If the players love you, that's a good thing. So we'll see that for Dan. So Lions at the top of that division. I know Green Bay fans. I know there's a lot of people out there that are, that love that Green Bay team. And toward the end of the season, they played really, really well, but I don't know. I don't. I just. I mean, they'll play well. This will be a good division. There's no question about it. But I just don't know what. I mean, I assume that their win total is going to be pretty close to what Detroit is.
Yeah, they're at 9.5.
Okay, that's a fair line. I could see them win 10 games.
Yeah, I mean they definitely could. I'm not going to talk too much on the Packers just because
Okay.
I'm a certified Jordan Love hater. So we'll see what happens. I expect him to regress this season.
Card carrying, yes. Yeah.
Yes. Let me my certified. Okay, but yeah, it's one of those things where I'm going to be rooting against the Packers. I want to
Okay.
see them fail, but yeah, I have no opinion on this total. I think they'll probably win right around 9 games.
Yeah.
I can definitely see it. So it's tough with that 9.5, obviously, just because do I see them as a 10-win team? No. They could get close though. It wouldn't shock me from what we saw last year.
Here's what my theory on this. Okay. I think that they'll be able to, and this is what Detroit and Green Bay, my own personal opinion. I can see them beating both. They're going to win. They're going to win basically 4 games because they play they play the Bears and they play Minnesota twice. Okay, so
what about the 9-win Chicago Bears with Caleb Williams, future Hall of Famer? What are you talking about?
I'm personally not believing that, but okay, we'll leave that one out. But call me a doubter, and if I'm wrong, I'm the first one to go crazy with it. But there's 4 games right there. 4 games without leaving the division. They have played Detroit tough, on both in Detroit and at home. So it's possible that they split it with there. That's 5 games in their own division.
You're making a good point for the over here, Jim. You're making a real good case for the over.
I'm just, I always look at. I start with the division and build my way out. That's just how I look at this.
Yeah. Well, normally with the win totals, you look at the schedule, right? You look at who they play, and then you count them out. That's a win, that's a loss, that's a win. You see what records you get at the end of the season, and that's how you're supposed to base your win total off of.
And the other thing too is that I don't know about you. I like to go. What I like to, I go in 4-game clumps. Okay, the season it used to be 4 games. 4. We used to have 4 times 4, but we add another game to the list here. But I think that's where you look at it. You look at it. Okay, fine. Where are they going to be after the first 4? Where are they going to be after the second 4? That whole situation. So I do see Green Bay. I think is it attainable that they can win 9 games? Absolutely, I think it is attainable. But to your point, we have to see what how that situation plays out at quarterback. He had a great run there, but then again, toward the end of the season, when he had to, things didn't go as well. So Jordan Love was not the guy at the end of the season that he was at the beginning of the season. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
Yeah. So we'll see.
You definitely aren't. There's no question that you're not.
Yeah, no, like I.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
I hated on him last year, and I'm gonna stand by it. I'm just.
Hey, look.
I will die on this.
I respect that you own that. Okay, I respect that you.
But that's the thing, Jim. If he turns out to be good this season, I will be the first to say, okay,
yeah,
I was wrong about Jordan Love. I won't sit here and call him crap, but I think he hasn't proven it yet. So we'll find out this season. All right.
He had some good backup on that team. I mean, he's got good wide receivers. I mean, he's all over the place. But I would concern myself if I was worried about their defense. Green Bay's defense was sieve-like there at the end. So I don't think that you want to get into you know, a scoring duel
Here's
with that Green Bay team because
here's
they're not
another one with the Packers for you. You can take Jordan Love out of the equation.
enough.
This team hasn't been able to stay healthy the last few years.
Good point.
Whether it's Aaron Jones, Jair Alexander, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter where it is. It seems that there's always a key player at a key
Mhm.
position on the field that's out or missing for a game.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Most importantly, let's get to your picks for the day and let everybody know what they can find out in that wonderful box below in our show box.
Yeah, make sure you check out my premium picks at bigal.com, pickadvisor.com, and theinsidersroom.com. The links in the description below. I did mention yesterday I had a bit of a rough week, but we were going to bounce back. Well, scorched the books yesterday, 7-1 day, 6-1 on the pitch, and 1-0 in MLB. So, like I said, we're getting hot on the pitch again. I do have some action. There's not a lot on the pitch today, but I do have some action. There's one game in Argentina that you can grab. I also have a Copa do Brazil match for later tonight that you can go grab. So that'll be your action on the pitch. And I have one play in the MLB as well as one play in the NBA. I'm on a 5-1 MLB run and a 5-2 NBA run. So we've been getting hot in those sports. Make sure you go check that out.
There you go. All right, everybody. Have a lovely day. Tomorrow we're going to be chatting a little bit. We'll go through some more of the NFL, and as we get further along, it's a little too early to do it, but we'll talk a little bit about the French Open, which started today, and we'll see what goes from there. Big holiday weekend. It's Memorial Day weekend here in the United States, and so we'll see how we stack up as we head into a big. It's the biggest. Bry Cape must be in his element because it's the biggest race day in motor racing. Because on Sunday there is the Formula One is in Monaco. Then you've got the Indianapolis 500, and then you've got the Charlotte Coca-Cola World 600. Interesting thing, we got Kyle Larson this year, and Jimmy Johnson will be driving the Indy 500 and then flying by private jet to Charlotte to race in the Coca-Cola 600. So they're going to try to pull off a double, race in two races in one day, 1,100 laps of racing, basically starting at noon and finishing sometime after midnight. So interesting. Somebody's going to have a lot of caffeine, for that one. A lot of Red Bull on that one. So anyway, we'll get to that when we get closer to it. But until then, all right, everybody. Thanks for joining us, Jason. Thank you for coming by, buddy. Good to see you. Anytime you want to drop by and be a guest, let us know. We're more than happy to have you. Take care, and we will see you coming up tomorrow. No, I won't see you tomorrow, but we'll see you on Thursday. Take care, everybody.